Hey, great to have you here. So back today with another S.H. Figuarts Dragon Ball video, and today specifically we're going to be looking at Piccolo in the Daima line. So this is the adult version of Piccolo. We've previously gotten the mini one announced, and kind of the other mini characters as well. So kind of strange they're coming back and doing adult Piccolo at this point in time. Let me know down in the comments below. I've mentioned this a few times. I haven't personally watched Daima, so I don't know how integral Piccolo is to the storyline. From what I've seen, and a lot of the transformations they've shown off, Goku and Vegeta seem to be the center point of things, similar to kind of how they've done with all of Dragon Ball recently, where the Saiyans are pretty much the focal point. That was my understanding, so let me know if Piccolo does have some importance here. It seems like with him having both a mini and adult version, I imagine he at least has some relevant scenes, even if he's not necessarily the main focal point. But let me know down below, as I said, if this guy is somebody that feels like he has some integral importance to the storyline of things. But as mentioned, we're getting the adult version of Piccolo now. A little bit strange. They had the adult Goku and Vegeta previously. Then we had the mini version of everybody. And now we're going back and doing adult Piccolo. So curious on why they're going with that schedule release. But either way, this is what we have. And we're just going to jump in and look at some of the images we do have here for Piccolo. So starting off with the first one here, we have Piccolo kind of in your standard pose here, where we have him with this cape on him and then the crossed arms. Piccolo, Vegeta, these characters are kind of commonly known to have the crossed arms look, so you have to have it here with Piccolo. He's kind of just standing, looking on and just watching. Maybe in this instance, looking at Goku performing exceptionally well against Goma or something like that. He's just super happy to see that. But we have him with the smiling face here, and people are going to be happy to see we have a cloth cape. So a little bit interesting. The first cloth cape Piccolo is the Daima version of things, but it's not unusual to have the first release of an S.H. Figuarts be kind of a unique one that they went with for a new addition to the figure. Obviously, previously, the first special beam cannon actually came with Beast Gohan, and the first cloth cape we got was with Gohan as well in the Cell Saga. So, seems like some of the additions they're making, they're picking unique characters to do it with, because I'm not sure Piccolo from Daima is a figure that a lot of people necessarily would have gone after, but having the cloth cape here is definitely an interesting incentive for a lot of people to grab him. Maybe people are going to grab him and just use the cloth cape on their standard Piccolo. Be interesting to see if people wind up going down that route, but it's almost like some accessories where you have a character who's not necessarily somebody that people really want or need, actually, and they wind up picking it up because they want that extra inclusion, because it makes some previous figure even better. Let me know down below, is this a figure that the cloth cape is really the value add for you, or is the figure himself something that's really worthwhile to you? So kind of just glancing over the photo once again, we have him crossed arms, smiling on with the cloth cape. Not much really to call out here. Obviously, the shoes are more of the standard Dragon Ball shoes, not like the Super side of things where we had the curved toes. So this is fitting more of, I imagine they had this in Daima as well, but fitting more of the original Dragon Ball Z side of things with more of the pointed toes. And I think overall it looks pretty good here. Not really much to call out. It kind of looks like Piccolo just standing back and watching a fight ultimately. And then next up, this photo is awesome, I would say. So we have really showing off the cape here. So if you didn't get the impression from the prior photo, because the prior one, it almost looks like it could have been a plastic cape. Obviously, you can kind of tell cloth texture in the image, but it was just kind of down. This is really highlighting the benefits of having a cloth cape, because a lot of times the plastic capes, well, I think they look cool on the shelves and they still work. People's real reason to get cloth is because you can do a lot more variety with it. I don't think a plastic cape you could have gotten this high. So you have him kind of squatting down, powering up, and behind him you have the cape just floating behind him, kind of showing the aura just exploding from him here. We have him with a somewhat of a yelling face, so definitely that powering up face, like he's about to just duke it out with somebody. We have the clenched fist here, showing off kind of the arms of Piccolo here, and then showing a little bit of the lower body as well. There's a little bit of weird gapping with the knees. The pants kind of look like the Tanjiro pants a little bit, but they feel like they have a lot more gapping where the knees at, so we'll have to see a little bit further with that with photos. But overall, this is an awesome shot. This is definitely an action pose you can have Piccolo in any display, and having the ability to do those kind of capes with flying abilities adds to that really live presence of your figures you have on your shelf. So love this photo. Next up, not much unique to call out here necessarily. It's kind of one of your stereotypical where you have him just doing a kicking motion here. So we have him just doing that side motion, maybe showing off a little bit of ankle articulation, but not really any new additions from the prior one, because we have the cape flowing once again. But beyond that, we're just kind of doing the same thing we did in the prior photo, I would say, but a little bit worse in my opinion. So not super strong here. The crotch area looks a little bit goofy, I would say, just showing it in this pose. So not necessarily a position I would have Piccolo in, but not a bad photo overall. Next up, I love this picture. So this is kind of your typical Piccolo face. Like whoever designed this figure, and I imagine he did this in Daima as well, but this is just a very stereotypical Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z face. Whenever, I don't know, Frieza or Cell, somebody would show up, and Piccolo for like 5 minutes would have this shocked look on his face. They definitely recaptured that here, so love to see this faceplate. Could be my favorite faceplate they include with Piccolo. Then we have obviously the grabbing hands here, so just kind of the fingers a little bit bent and clenched there. And him just, as I said, looking very shocked. I love this pose. It's not necessarily something I would probably put him in on my display, but if you're having him maybe next to somebody who's like extremely powering up, like if you put him next to, I don't know, a Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and he's just in awe of seeing this guy, I think this look is awesome to see and a good inclusion overall. Next up, we have Piccolo without his headpiece on. So we actually see his antenna here and just his full head overall. Then we have him doing on his right hand, we have the special beam cannon, essentially fingers pointing out. As mentioned, kind of bummed we haven't traditionally gotten a special beam cannon with Piccolo at this point, so would have been cool to include that here. I'm not sure if he did it in Daima or not, but overall, that's definitely something we're still missing. We obviously get the cloth cape here, but that's really the extra piece we need for Piccolo. You can do this pose, but having a special beam cannon included would be awesome to have, because even the one we got with Beast Gohan, A, it's kind of a different color anyway, but B, on top of that, we have the fingers kind of tied to the special beam cannon, so you can't even really do it with somebody like Piccolo overall. So beyond that, just a cool pose. It's kind of standard for Piccolo. This is what you expect. Similar to the crossed arms, this is the face and position you could easily put Piccolo in any given situation. And then next up, I'm not really sure what the point of this photo is. It's a little strange. We obviously have a different faceplate with him having the teeth gritting face, so that's different here. And then we have the open hand, especially on the left side. We have the kind of the open palm hand there and more of the grippy hand on the right. And he's just kind of like reaching towards the camera. I'm not sure if this is maybe a scene from Daima or not, but it's not something that necessarily was a value add to me personally, and feels a little bit of a wasted photo, but just showing off more of a variety for Piccolo, and really just the headpiece is really the call out here. And then finally, we get a picture of Piccolo doing more of a martial arts attack here, so doing more of a karate chop almost with his straight palmed hand we have here, and that stern face with him, so very focused on engaging with combat with somebody. And as mentioned, we have a different hand there as well, showing off the elbow piece as well, so decent range there, probably around 90 degrees I would expect. And beyond that, not much different for this photo, I would say. So really, the call out here, I would probably say, is the inclusion of the different face, the hand, and you can kind of see the knees a little bit better in this photo. As mentioned, it kind of has the benefit of the Tanjiro like sliding over the kneecap, but in some ways it feels like there's a little bit more gapping on Piccolo compared to Tanjiro, so hopefully that winds up not being as bad as it could be. But overall, I think this seems like a decent release though. So kind of recapping my thoughts overall. So Daima, as I've previously mentioned, is not a line I plan to go down. It's not an IP that, or not a series that I necessarily feel like I need to collect, because they've had so many releases from it that if you wind up grabbing everything, it's going to be quite a lot of figures you're collecting. So I've kind of just stayed away from it at this point in time. But I think overall, if you're into Daima, this is a cool Piccolo. So I think it carries a lot of the parts you would look for in a Piccolo. So obviously the cloth cape is probably the #1 win for a lot of people overall. And I think they capture a lot of good scenes with him. As mentioned, kind of recapping the photos, I think my favorite ones would be the one with him powering up is probably the best one overall. Just having that cape be really shown off there, and just having Piccolo looking very aggressively like he's about to attack somebody. And then my second favorite one is probably the one where he looks terrified. So kind of completely the other side of the spectrum, where somebody else is probably powering up and he just realizes he is totally screwed. He's got no chance. So those two portions of Piccolo here, I would say, are very value adds. So if I did pick up the Daima line, this is a guy I would probably grab, because those two representations of Piccolo are awesome to have here. And I think the cloth cape will be a big selling point for a lot of people. As mentioned, even if you're not into Daima, I could see people grabbing him because they want that cloth cape inclusion. And he seems like a good Piccolo either ways. He may not work for a Z display because the coloring and some other portions of Piccolo may not accurately represent how he looked in Dragon Ball Z or even original Dragon Ball. So some of the inclusions there could make him stand out if you don't have him in Daima specific scenes. But I think he looks great. So if you're going down the Daima line, definitely somebody I would recommend. If you're like me and kind of staying away, it's not somebody I necessarily feel like I'm going to wind up picking up, but I can admire that he's a cool figure overall and a worthwhile pickup in my opinion. So kind of recapping as well some of the details they gave us. So scheduled release of this guy is going to be in August of this year, and pre-orders are going to open here pretty shortly. So be on the lookout for that if you want to pre-order this guy. I imagine you're probably going to be able to grab him pretty much anywhere once he does come out in August. But if you want to get ahead of things and pre-order him, definitely jump on that. They haven't given us any price information yet, but if I'm making a prediction here, I feel like they're probably going to price this guy like $60 because 50, in my opinion, makes more sense. But since he has the cloth cape, they could even wind up going as high as 70. That's what they wound up doing with the Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and that's a mini. So realistically, they could do something like 70 or 75, but I'm going to hope that they stick around and say $60 for this guy, but we'll have to see for sure when we do get the official pre-release information. But beyond that, let me know your guys' thoughts. Is this a guy that you're going to wind up grabbing? As mentioned, he's somebody I would endorse as far as a figure from the photos we've gotten here today, but he's not somebody I plan to buy just because I haven't gone down Daima. But if you wind up grabbing him, I think he's a great choice overall. So as mentioned, share all your thoughts on this figure down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.